Alright guys, we are now officially in the month of December, and that only means one thing. The January transfer window is only 1 month away. This is the point of the year where the transfer rumours do start to ramp up a little bit, and as a result we will be bringing these videos back a little bit more regularly now on the build up to January. And we've got quite a bit to go through in today's video, not just some of the latest transfer rumours going around the Championship. We've seen a few done deals go through in the past few weeks, all of which will be touched on in today's video. So as always, if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to drop a like, and any other rumours that you've seen that we don't mention today, get them in the comments down below and we'll discuss them next time. But without any further ado, let's just jump in. So of course the big story going around the Championship right now is that Sheffield Wednesday have been handed a further 6-point deduction, meaning they're now back to the double-digit minus figures. They're on minus 10 points now. Ultimately, I think Sheffield Wednesday fans knew that this season itself was always going to be a bit of a write-off no matter what. Even if they hadn't been handed that point deduction, they were still the odds-on favourites to have finished bottom of the league. And ultimately, I think Wednesday will want to face all the sanctions possible this season and then hopefully start next year in League One with a bit of a fresh start. Something that will carry over into League One, though, is the fee restrictions that are still on the club, meaning that they can't spend a transfer fee until January 2027. Now, obviously, some of these things could be changed, lifted, when new owners do come in, but that remains to be seen, and for the time being, Wednesday can't spend any transfer fees until January 2027, which does seem like a long time away in football. Now, obviously, of late, we have seen some new managers coming into the Championship as well. We've had Felipe Clement coming in at Norwich, Kim Hellberg at Middlesbrough, and Vitor Matos going in at Swansea. Very interested to see how the transfer strategy with those clubs is going to be potentially influenced by those 3 new managers coming in, and which of them, if any, will be heavily backed in January. But in terms of some done deals we've seen going through in the Championship over these past few weeks, obviously we saw Sheffield United snapping up Patrick Bamford. There had been loads of rumours about him moving to Spain, but that move never materialised in the end, and he seems to have settled himself down at Sheffield United quite quickly. Their rivals, Sheffield Wednesday, have also been fairly productive as well. They brought in Liam Cooper on a free transfer. Obviously, while the club isn't able to spend any transfer fees at the moment, they're still capable of signing players on frees or on loans. And with that similar thought process, they also got a deal over the line for Nathan Redmond, who signed on a free. He came on in the second half against North End over the weekend. And a deal which certainly caught a few people off guard was Charlton signing Jerome Roussillon, someone who's best known from his time with Wolfsburg and previously Union Berlin as well. He only made 7 appearances last season and obviously has been picked up on a free transfer with him being without a club. Now, I think there were a few Charlton fans who were hopeful that he'd be ready straight away to be thrown into the starting 11 against Coventry, but looks like he's still a week or so away from properly building up his fitness. He's only signed on a short-term contract, so probably until about January, maybe with the view then to look to extend until the end of the season. But yeah, an interesting one nonetheless, one that I certainly didn't see come in. But those are a few of the done deals which have gone through in the Championship over these past few weeks. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into the transfer rumours. So it's no secret that both Preston North End and Stoke City have been long-term admirers of Sheffield United striker Tom Cannon. Cannon played his best football of his career while out on loan at Preston and Stoke, and as a result, both clubs have been keeping tabs on the forward ahead of the January window. Worth stressing as well, North End went really close to signing him on loan on transfer deadline day of the summer window, but ultimately that deal was pulled at the last stage by Sheffield United as they weren't able to sign an adequate replacement in time. North End have kept a keen interest in the striker since then, and links to Stoke City have also continually been popping up as well. However, both clubs' chances of landing a deal for Cannon in January seemingly have been cut a little bit short, with Cannon finally discovering a bit of form for Sheffield United in recent weeks. With 2 goals in his last 3 matches, it finally looks like Wilder is getting a bit of a tune out of Cannon. Obviously, a lot of money was spent on him originally to get him from Leicester City, and realistically, up until this point, he's looked like a shadow of his former self, who was so prolific during those spells with Stoke and Preston previously. Would not be surprised if both Stoke and Preston continue to ask that question going into the January window, but given he's discovered a bit of form recently, it looks unlikely now that that deal will happen. And speaking of Stoke City, could deja vu be about to hit them in the January window? Because a few clubs are registering an interest in loanee striker Divin Mubama, who's done well for the Potters since joining from Manchester City. He is on a season-long loan deal there, but the idea has been floated that Man City could potentially recall him from that loan spell in January and then look to sell him on a permanent basis. You've got Crystal Palace, who are one of the most prominent clubs supposedly interested right now, with them viewing a player like Mubama as a long-term replacement for Mateta. A few clubs from around Europe are also supposedly interested in the 21-year-old as well, and I mean, Stoke have been through this before, you know, with Tom Cannon. He was absolutely banging the goals in up until January, and then he was pulled out of there. Now, Mubama, to be fair, goal-wise, hasn't actually been that prolific recently. He's only scored in one of his last 16 matches for Stoke, and that was the hat-trick against Bristol City. But when you've got a settled squad like Robins does at the moment, the last thing that he'll want is, you know, players being taken away from him in January. If anything, I think Stoke will want to sign someone alongside Mubama to come in January to supplement them and give them a few more goals. So let's wait and see what happens on that one. A recall followed by a permanent sale in January, though, could be on the cards. And speaking of players being recalled in January, Louis Barry is expected to be recalled by Aston Villa in the January window from his loan with Sheffield United and then sent out on loan elsewhere in the Championship for the second half of the season. Now, so far for Barry at Bramall Lane, things just haven't clicked for him. He's made 9 appearances, hasn't registered a single goal contribution. He's been out with an injury recently, and for whatever reason, things just haven't clicked for him there. Now, there are a whole host of clubs who are supposedly interested in taking him on loan in the January window. Among those clubs in the Championship, you've got Stoke, Derby, Hull, who he previously had a loan spell with, and Oxford, who have all been named as interested in a loan deal for the second half of the season. And it's a tricky one with Barry, really, isn't it? Because he had that fabulous loan spell in the first half of last season in League One with Stockport, where he was scoring goals week in, week out for fun. He was then pulled out of that loan spell, sent out on loan to Hull for the second half of the season, and then pretty much got injured straight away and then didn't play for the rest of the year. Since that point, he's never quite been able to recapture that same form that he showcased at Stockport, and Villa are thinking that a loan deal elsewhere may just spark him back into life. Sticking with some Sheffield United news, I think it's safe to say that Riedewald has been a really successful signing for the Blades, considering he was picked up on a free transfer during the middle of the season. I think they picked him up in October, didn't they? Handed him a contract until January, and since then I think he's been a key part of their uptick in form, keeping things ticking over in midfield. However, with his current deal with Sheffield United set to expire in the middle of January, it does leave the Blades in a bit of a tricky situation, with supposedly a few other Championship clubs and sides from across Europe all interested in signing the midfielder, who will technically be made available to leave on a free should he choose. Now, Sheffield United will no doubt offer him a contract extension, and that offer will be on the table for him. But as Chris Wilder spoke about recently, the worst case scenario for Sheffield United would have been them getting Riedewald back, get his match fitness up, all for him to then go off and sign for another club in January. Let's wait and see what happens on that front, though. No doubt Sheffield United will be trying their best to extend his deal there. And a number of Championship clubs will have been made aware that Ryan Hardie is potentially open to leaving Wrexham in the January transfer window. Now, the striker only joined Wrexham over the summer. At the time, I think most of us said that's a sensible bit of business, but how much is he actually going to play with the other forwards that Wrexham have signed since getting Hardie in? Ultimately, he's found himself quite low down the pecking order this season. Having only started in 2 Championship matches and 3 appearances off the bench, he's only played 167 minutes of league football up until this point. I must admit, though, he did score an absolute worldie of a goal against my team, North End, in the League Cup earlier in this season, but right now that's the only goal he scored for Wrexham. And being 28 years old, he'll want to be playing regularly. Now, if Hardie is open to a move in January, then you could bet there'd be a whole host of other Championship clubs who would be interested. A lot of other Championship sides were interested over the summer, but ultimately it was probably Wrexham who gave him the best contract and was the most exciting project to join. But having found himself quite low down the pecking order this season, you could see why a January move could be on the agenda there. Brazilian winger Andre Luiz has been linked with a few Championship clubs, with the likes of Stoke, Norwich and Portsmouth all supposedly interested, although Sunderland have also been linked as well. And it does feel like one of those where if Sunderland are properly interested in January, they'll probably get the player. But it's an interesting one. He's currently playing for Rio Ave in Portugal, where he's done well so far this season with 4 goals and 4 assists in the Portuguese top flight. The sort sort of money that has been quoted for him as well, he doesn't look like a player that will come cheap, and immediately I'm thinking I can't see Portsmouth dropping the sort of money that's being spoken about here. With the Portuguese side looking for around 13 million if they were going to sanction a sale in January. That could come down over the coming weeks, but those are the sides that have been linked with him of late. But guys, that will wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, if you've seen anything else going on in the Championship that we didn't mention today, make sure to get it in the comments down below and we'll speak about it next time. I can't wait to have the transfer window back in just a month's time. If you want to stay informed with everything going on in the Championship, especially in the transfer world, this is the best place to go ahead and do so. So do hit that subscribe button if you've not already. Apart from that though guys, thank you very much for tuning in and I'll see you all in the next one.